and welcome to On Stage with Romeo and Juliet. I'm your host and PTHS teacher, Erin Boni. Today we're here to promote the fall play at Peters Township High School, which will be Romeo and Juliet. Today I'll have 5 guests that I'll interview through this production, which will appear at Peters Township High School on October 10th, 12th, and 14th. The Thursday and Saturday shows are at 7 p.m. and the Sunday matinee at 2. So first up, I have 2 guests with me, Mrs. Gina Duffy and Mrs. Kelly Barefoot, co-directors of the play. Welcome, and thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
So first, I just want you guys to tell us a little bit about yourselves. How long have you been, you're both teachers at the high school, and how long have you been directing plays here, which I know is definitely different for each of you. So
Sure.
Gina?
Yeah, so I've taught English at PTHS for 16 years, and this is my 5th show.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's my 5th show directing, and it's our third together?
Third
together.
Okay. Wasn't Clue your first one? Was that?
Was
or
that
no,
our first
did you do
one?
another one?
I think that was
Yes.
our first one together.
Yes.
Yes.
I still talk about that. That was one of my favorites.
great.
I think
we
that
love
was
it
our
too.
favorite too.
Yeah, it's a
really
fun
good.
show.
It was really
really
fun.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Kelly, now you've been directing for a long time. And what about teaching as well?
Yeah, so I've been teaching since 2005, but I've been here at Peters since 2010.
Okay.
So this is my 14th year here at Peters, and I started directing here my first year that I taught here. So 14 seasons. I did take a couple years off. This is my first year back after COVID. So, and yeah, like Gina said, this is our 3rd production together. And now I feel like I wouldn't want to do one without doing it together. It's so nice to have another adult to kind of bounce ideas off of. And I mean, we both have really young kids, so it's nice to be able to kind of tackle a calendar together and divide up some time. It really makes it a lot more manageable because it's a lot of time. It's a lot of time to do a production.
Right. You just got to squeeze in a ton. So tell me, other than obviously the Old English, what makes directing Shakespeare different?
I mean,
or more challenging even than a regular play.
I wouldn't say other than the Old English. I think that is the challenge. The heightened language is definitely a challenge. Just having the actors not only understand what the language is saying, but how to portray those emotions and the timeless themes on stage so that they get out there to the audience.
Right. So that even if you don't know
the language, you have to be able to convey the emotion to the audience so that they can understand what the character is experiencing, so that if they don't understand the language, they can at least feel the energy of the scene. Yeah. I just think there's just such a level of detail with Shakespeare that, I mean, the number of costumes that you need. The sheer number of characters, first of all. I mean, we have 35 characters in the cast.
Yeah.
Okay.
Each one of those characters has about 3 different costumes. Each one of those costumes has about 3 different layers to them. We're talking vests, undergarments, pantyhose or leggings, shoes. I mean, the level of detail in a Shakespeare script is just unbelievable. And so that's something that makes Shakespeare an extra challenge. Plus, when you're dealing with a Shakespeare script, you don't really get stage directions the way that you do with modern scripts.
Oh, that's true.
Depending on the version that you pick up. I mean, if you're working with a true first folio edition, there's very few stage directions. So that makes it extra challenging as a director because you are kind of creating all of that extra movement.
Right.
All of our ensemble actors, I mean, we have to come up with every little
thing that they're doing in the background so they just don't look like they're hanging there like a piece of furniture, right?
So you're
I mean,
kind of a director and a choreographer, and luckily we have a lot of students who have helped in that role. I mean, we have 2 amazing students, Joe Myers and Elle Gensler, who have choreographed all all of our fight and combat scenes.
Nice.
They're on the fencing team, and
Perfect.
so I mean,
it makes total sense.
Yes. And so you have to, and I think that's one of the biggest challenges too, is surrounding yourself with competent people that you can delegate all these different tasks to and say, okay, you're in charge of this and this and this, and just
from there.
going from there and trusting people in these different roles.
Awesome. Awesome. So I wanted to maybe go a little bit off my script here, but I was talking to one of the other English teachers today, and they said that a unique opportunity is every year the 9th grade reads Romeo and Juliet, and I have a 9th grader in a different district, and she's reading Romeo and Juliet. So that your guys are going to bring up the 8th graders and the 9th graders have the opportunity to see this during the school day. So tell me, I guess, like, when did you guys brainstorm this idea? Like, how did that come about that this is something that you wanted to do?
The 8th grade teachers actually approached us
They did
about it
last year.
Yeah,
Okay.
we were kind of simmering on this. Romeo and Juliet was kind of a bucket list item for us for a while, and we were floating the idea around towards the end of last year.
Okay.
And when we brought it up, the 8th grade teachers were like, wouldn't that be cool to do a field trip or some sort of in-school matinee? And so
Right.
they were the ones that kind of spearheaded it. And then our 9th grade teachers just sort of jumped on board and said, yeah, what a unique opportunity. And
Right, like
and
it
then
won't happen again.
It's not going to happen again for a long time.
And we have a lot of 9th graders, so I think the 8th grade teachers particularly were excited to come right back and see them and how they've grown and what they're involved in now.
And see all that stuff. No, I think that's excellent. It was just a very, very cool idea.
And it's really the only Shakespeare we do in high school that you could even pull off at the stage, on the stage. I mean, we can't do Hamlet. We can't do Macbeth.
There's some that are just, they're like too much, right?
Right.
Really
it's the only one
to,
that's even relatable or manageable, I think, at the high school level. So
to attack.
So it's a once in a lifetime kind of.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome then. And you guys have to be really excited about doing it.
Yeah, we are.
How do you prepare students to be in a production? What makes it, I don't know, not even necessarily Shakespeare, but what kind of teaching are you doing theater-wise that's different than things you do in the classroom?
Oh, man.
Yeah, so I mean, this show is particularly challenging because our actors need to, like I was saying before, they need to understand the language, but also the character's motivation all the time, what they're doing, what they want, what they're trying to get. But in addition to our speaking roles, we have 35 characters. So we have a huge cast of ensemble members, and we have, like, for example, a ball scene. We have all of these ensemble members who have particular roles that they have to portray during this entire scene that they don't necessarily have anything specific to do. And they have to know their character and know their role and stay in character that whole time.
So we do a lot with improvisation.
Okay.
We do a lot of improving. We do, I mean, again, coming back to surrounding ourselves with competent adults, we have such a great team. I mean, we have Mr. Zippe, who does all of the lights and sound. And again, you know, we have a great student team that, you know, we go to, and we've been lucky that every year there's sort of these seniors that step forward and kind of
watch the other kids. And
they mentor the younger kids, and then they kind of come up through the system. And we have great student directors who I believe you're going to interview next. Alayna is one of them, and stage managers, and they each kind of man their different crews. And I mean, it's just it even down to the set level. I mean, we have an outside set builder, Rob Hockenberry. He comes in and he works on the weekends with a team of our students who build the set. I mean, we truly, I mean, this is 100% student driven. Everything that you're going to see on stage is 100% done by the students.
Good.
Is it going to be pristine? Is it going to be perfection?
Right.
No, I mean, it's not. I mean, is it going to be the same level as something you see at the Benedum? No, it's not a professional production. But we can be 100% confident that it has been done by our students. And that's what we want. This is a learning facility.
That's it.
And we want it in the hands of our students, and we want them creating it. You know, could we go up on stage and bring a bunch of professionals in and come up with some like amazing set? Yeah, like of course, but it wouldn't be the same.
Right.
That's
And
not the point of it,
you
know? And so the fact that, you know, we have the students doing the fight choreography, we have the students doing the dances, we have the students pulling costumes from all these different places. You know,
right. It's the idea that they get that experience.
It amazing for us.
Because all those skills, whether they go into theater or not, they're all beneficial.
They're
to them
designing
going
the
forward.
makeup, they're putting the makeup on, and I mean, that's what makes it worthwhile for us.
Excellent. Well, thank you both for joining me today. So we're hoping to get a lot of you know, promo for your show here.
Yes, thank you. We really appreciate it.
And to all of you, when we come back, I'm going to interview Romeo and Juliet and one of the stage managers. So stay tuned.
All right.
Hi, welcome back to On Stage with Romeo and Juliet. I'm back with Maura, Xavier, and Alayna, student participants in the show, because I have 2 actors and 1 student director. Thank you guys so much for being here with me today.
Thank you for having us.
Appreciate it. So first, I'm going to ask you guys to tell me about your character or about your position. So I'm going to start first with Maura. Tell me about your character and maybe something we don't know or something you had to think about to prepare for it.
So Juliet is a very complex character, which a lot of people, I don't think, really realize that at first. She definitely is very naive, which is a lot of people pick up on that pretty immediately. But she also has this like idea of being like a woman, and she becomes almost a woman by the end of the show, but she never really fully gets to like experience adulthood. So it's this really tragic character, and she's like so kind-hearted, honestly, and like it was hard to be so like, or feel so like sad and like beat down all the time with such a sweetheart of a character, I guess.
Yeah, that's true, because it is, in the end, it's a tragedy.
Oh, definitely.
Xavier, tell me about Romeo.
Well, you know, Romeo, he's just, honestly, he's kind of like a typical teenage boy. He's very moody, incredibly moody, almost insufferably so. And he just, you know, falls in love at first sight, which, you know, just 2 people, you know, at one time basically, because he just moves from one person and then to Juliet, and it's just, he's very sporadic, he's very spur of the moment.
Yeah, kind of fickle, right? Because at the beginning, wasn't he like in love with somebody else, like for sure, and then it's all of a sudden, well, no,
and
I'm
it's
not
literally
in love.
like in the same second, he's just one to one. So he's very irrational and very spur of the moment.
So interesting, then compliment, you know, so an interesting, you know, contrast even to Juliet wanting to become a woman and being, you know, a little more serious, I guess. So which again could be teenage girls, teenage boys, right? Okay, so Alayna, you are the student director. Can you tell me just a little bit about what that job entails for you?
So this is actually one of my first leadership positions within Peters Theater. I'm usually on stage, but usually at rehearsals I'm sitting, I'm watching, sometimes giving feedback. I'm getting blocking, and if one of the actors were to miss rehearsal, I would give them their blocking. Really just another pair of eyes and another pair of hands. I help out a lot, just little tedious tasks that need done, stuff like that. Bios, stuff for, you know, the technical stuff of everything.
Right.
I just like to help out.
Yeah.
So yeah.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
I love it. And it was interesting. I said I saw you in a room. I'm like, oh, she's behind the scenes.
Yeah,
this time.
it was really cool to be behind on a technical side instead of, you know, putting on what goes on behind. So it was cool.
It's good. I think it's good to see all aspects. Okay, so other than obviously the language, I would even say because the language is so hard, Mrs. Duffy and Mrs. Barefoot had mentioned that you have to somehow embody in your character, in your physical space, Shakespeare, so that the audience who's kind of like, well, I feel like I'm watching a movie that needs subtitles. So how have you prepared differently than you would maybe just a normal play?
Wow, I feel like every line kind of has its own bit of choreography to it, and a little bit of like motion with it to help like just convey the point of the line or the point of the monologue or soliloquy or whatever is being said at the moment. But I definitely think choreography has been a bigger part of this production than many of the others. Even like I understand that musicals, you know, you have to choreograph the huge dance numbers, but like just like you don't really choreograph the lines, which is like something very different that we've had to do for this one.
Okay. And how do you feel that maybe it's been different for Romeo to try and use those crazy words but try to convey what's happening?
I think it's definitely been harder. It's definitely been something I have to even wrap my own head around, which is I've never really particularly been like a Shakespeare person.
Right.
And I've been turned. I understand it now, but it's just kind of a lot of, you know, deconstruction and reconstruction, because you're trying to basically translate and put it into your own words so you know what you're saying, and you can kind of, what she was saying with the verbal choreography of kind of like choreographing your emotions and your like kind of, I don't know, diction maybe,
Right.
I don't know if that's the right word, to like be able to do some lifting to kind of convey what you mean, if that makes sense.
No, it does. It absolutely makes sense. And so then, Alayna, we talk about blocking, and for those who are noobs like me, I know that blocking now is like knowing where you are on stage.
Yes.
So how have you helped maybe with blocking of either these characters or other characters so that what they're doing looks purposeful?
Yes, I have actually had the pleasure of blocking 2 scenes in the show all by myself.
Nice, good for you. Yay.
Such a fun opportunity. I mean, I've never really blocked in my life, so yeah, it was the balcony scene and another little scene. So while I was doing the blocking and while I'm watching them, you know, on stage, they're moving. It's really important to put so much meaning, not only behind the lines, but also with the movement. And I think that, you know, sometimes even a little goes a long way, if that makes sense. Keeping it somewhat simplistic, but also complex. The movement really just makes the story, and it's really beautiful to watch up there. And like Maura was saying, the choreography, it's funny because, you know, in musicals you're choreographing dances and such, but now you're choreographing minds and speaking. So I think that, the blocking is just, it's a lot.
And like you said, like sometimes a little goes a long way. You don't want somebody up there doing anything that would distract from what's happening too. So while it needs to be, it needs to convey what you're saying, but also needs to be purposeful. And I would think that would be just really, really tough. So tell me, I assume that many of you here have performed in front of peers here, as well as maybe in other productions, like for other community theater or something like that. Tell me how it's different performing in front of your peers versus, you know, maybe like another community theater where it's mostly just family coming to see you.
I feel like with performing in front of your peers, they kind of have an idea of you, and so they kind of understand like these base levels of your personality. And when you get to like show a character that isn't really what your personality is, you get to like just showcase this like whole other side of you that like no one really sees, even your family. And like with community theater, it's just kind of a character to everyone. Like not everyone else has an idea that they're like basing their view on. So yeah, it's different to showcase that.
Yeah. Xavier?
I've only performed for my peers.
Okay. So tell me though, does it make you more motivated or more nervous to be in front of your peers?
I would say it's easier because, well, I don't know, particularly, because I don't think they hold it to as much of a standard, I don't know, than like somebody who's just like, I know this character needs to be the way I see it, other than like, oh, that's just Xavier up there.
Right. Or like, it's cool, I get to see my friend, as opposed to, like you said, like, some critical person
like, that's
coming.
Romeo, and that's not actually Romeo.
Exactly.
That's some
like
guy.
some
but
kid.
other guys like, that's Xavier.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess he's some other person too. I don't know.
Very cool. I'm going to start with Alayna on this one. And so what would you want the audience to know about this Peters Township's Romeo and Juliet, or how would you hype or promote this show? What would you say to people, like, to encourage them to come out and see it?
I would say, we read Shakespeare in 9th grade. We start with Romeo and Juliet. And really, I think it's just so special to see that classic, at first probably very hard for all of the students reading it, and just seeing it come to life. It's just so beautiful. And I mean, the actors do such a great job. Not only limited to these two, but the whole cast, really. It's just so amazing. And to see the vision that Shakespeare had in his head while he was writing this sort of come to life. And also with Mrs. Duffy and Mrs. Barefoot, there's just so many twists that they add to it, and little creative expressions within themselves directing. It's just overall such a beautiful show, and it's just so special to see it come to life other than on paper.
Yeah, and I agree with you, and that's the thing. Everybody talks about how you have to read Shakespeare, and I was an English major, and we had to read all the Henry, everybody's. And, it's hard, because everybody's like, oh, it should be performed, I'm like, well, then why are we reading it? Why don't we say it before?
Exactly.
So, right,
yes.
So you're right. So I think that's probably like the special part to do that there.
Yeah.
So then I'm going to switch gears with my question. I'm going to ask you guys, what is your favorite part of acting? And not necessarily Shakespeare, Romeo and Juliet, but what do you love the most about doing theater?
I'm such a fan of like diving deep into a character, like discovering the ins and outs, and like at some points making up your own little personality traits for someone is just like, it's so cool, and it's such a way to have creative expression.
Yeah.
And it's like, with like good direction, especially with Mrs. Barefoot and Mrs. Duffy, it's like so easy to like find that character in yourself. It's really nice.
That's awesome. I think that's why I like never was good at, I don't know, I'm one of those people that like can't lie, and like I smile, I give myself away, like I could never be a good poker player. But this is what I find even with my previous shows asking kids South Park Theater, that they talk about researching a character. I'm like, oh, like I guess that should be done, right? We should really be thinking about the character and not just thinking about like me doing the character, right? Or you doing the character. Very good. So you like the deep dive. Excellent.
Yes.
So Xavier, what about you? What is your favorite part of just acting in general, or being part of shows, that kind of thing?
I think it's kind of cool, kind of fun to just kind of be somebody else for a little bit,
Okay.
Yeah.
No.
It's kind of just cool to, kind of take on a persona and be able to lie to every single person you've ever known for a couple hours. And
that's
not
right.
be a jerk.
Yeah, that's right, because you can be any character.
You can
at
be
that
anybody. You can be anything. You can be a thing if you were in Beauty and the Beast. You could be a thing.
You're right. Yeah, like not
greater.
even a human being. You're right. That's true. I never even, gave that some
stereotypical
thought.
tree. You could be a tree.
That's right. You be the best tree you can be. Right? That's the way it is. Now, Alayna, even though you're not acting in this one, what is your favorite part of being? I know that you've been in productions in community theater as well as Peters. What do you love so much about acting, or being part of productions even?
I think there's so many different elements that go into it. I have always been really a fan of the character, but more importantly, I've really always loved getting ready as that character, and I've loved the the costume aspect of it. Every creative process, from taking yourself and then going to like this completely different character. There's a couple roles that I've played where it was like more like me, Regina George, Elle Woods. Those ones were easy, but once you get into like even animals and stuff like that, like I was in The Wizard of Oz and I was the lion, and it was so cool to see everyone's different artistic abilities come together. Like my art teacher did my makeup for that one, and it's just really the transformation is really, really cool. And now that I've had this opportunity to student direct, I think the next time that I act, I'm going to take a lot of consideration into the almost like the background elements to everything, all the technical things and stuff like that. So yeah.
Excellent. All right. Well, I really just want to thank all of you guys for being here today to promote the show. I wish you You know, the best is you guys go at breaking legs, right, is what I should say, break a leg, but not literally, on stage. And I just want to remind my audience that you can come see Romeo and Juliet at PTHS, Peters Township High School, on Thursday, October 11th, or Saturday, October 13th at 7 p.m., and Sunday, October 14th at the matinee. So we hope that you can come and see the magic of Shakespeare. Thank you for being here with us today.